Welcome to the coldest town in the nation, International Falls. Our guest today is somewhat of a local legend. He is a fourth-generation Rainy Lake resident. He's been a fishing guide since the age of 13. He has 30 years in real estate. He has a line of spirits named after him. He has his own theme song, if you can believe that. We are just so excited to welcome Barry Woods, otherwise known as Woody, to No Filter today. Okay, Woody, welcome to No Filter.
Well, thanks, Krista. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so happy to meet you and share your story, which is an incredible one, very colorful. You wear a lot of hats, as we'll get into.
Well, you have to up in this neck of the woods to make a living, you know, but it's not that I don't mind because it's kind of a spice of life, you know.
I like that, spice of life. So let's start from the beginning.
Okay.
You are fourth generation living on Rainy Lake.
Right.
So talk a little bit about your family history.
Okay, well, I had a great-grandpa he came from Quebec City back in the 1870s, and he ended up in Brainerd, Minnesota. He was a lumberman, logger. And then he found his way in the late 1890s. He found his way up here. There was a gold mining going on, Rainy Lake City. And he ended up building and operating a resort. Well, it's called Island View Lodge now, but he was counted in the last census of Rainy Lake City when it was actual city, and I think the last census was like 1905, and he was counted in that census as an operator. And then after the gold mining, didn't pan out, he did some commercial fishing, and then my grandpa, his son. He was a commercial fisherman, and so my mom kind of grew up in these fish camps in the summertime, and otherwise my grandpa had been a councilman on the city council in Rainier, Minnesota, which was a town that was established in 1908. It's just east of International Falls, on the shores of Sand Bay. And let's see, what else could I tell you about that? So Rainier was kind of a neat town, and I was actually born in Fort Francis. Okay. I think my mom's doctor had retired, so she had me. It wasn't for political reasons. It was just for ease, I guess, close. And so I'm half and half, I guess. I don't know.
So with that long family history, what are some of your memories growing up in this area? I mean, I know that you are an outdoors guy.
Yep.
So talk about some of your favorite childhood memories.
Well, basically, fishing and swimming. That's about all I'm going to do in the summer. I didn't really like to go to town, to International Falls in the summer where people are playing baseball and stuff, so I like to hang around the lake. Yeah. And so my childhood was filled with walking along the shoreline and casting, and until I was able to secure a boat. And then, like I say, swimming with a lot of friends and just hanging around,
The ideal childhood.
Oh, it was wonderful. I couldn't imagine it, anything different. Very fortunate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And did you have a lot of family still in the area?
Well, actually, I have 11 brothers and sisters.
11.
So I'm the youngest of 12. And there's still about 5 or 6 living in the area. Some have passed, a few have passed, but such is life, But fun childhood, We didn't have a big house. In fact, there was a burned down hotel that my dad put a flat roof on when he came back from World War II. And so we were pretty crowded. It was like a sardine can in there, but, it was fun growing up with the big family, and watching my sisters fight over clothes. And
How many girls to boys?
7 girls and 5 boys. Yeah. And it was constant change, people moving out, and but a lot of people came back to visit. It was really crowded. Christmas times and stuff were just wild,
We had a built-in neighborhood of friends.
Oh, yeah.
How many siblings?
Yeah, we had a picnic table for a table.
I mean,
we did.
In there, too.
Oh, God, it was, everybody scattered around, and whoever brought friends home, they got to eat, too. That's just the way it was back then. There was a lot of big families, not just ours. It was, and we were right next to the railroad track, so I don't think they got a lot of sleep.
I would imagine not. Can you talk a little bit about why you chose to stay here and live your life here?
Well, it didn't have a lot of options. I don't know. I started being a fishing guide with my uncle when I was like 13 or 14, and I kind of liked doing it. And I moved away a couple times, but without a real great education, hard to get your foot in the door. Plus, I never was a tradesman because I spent too much time screwing around on the lake. So I did bartending and that sort of thing. Then I'd come back here and do some more guiding, and then finally I decided I'm just going to keep doing this because it works, and keep me in. Not necessarily tall cotton, but I had pants and shirts.
Well, you're still a fishing guide, correct?
I'm more or less retired now.
Okay.
I take a lot of friends fishing though, but okay. No, I'm more or less retired from fishing now. I did just about 50 years of that fishing, and I am a real estate agent now on the lake, on Rainy Lake, and so I still go out on the lake just about every day, and I'm, take people fishing and try to sell them a cabin, I guess. I don't know.
Well, it makes sense as a crossover, right?
Yeah.
Someone who knows real estate and who knows the
best
fishing spots.
Yeah, when it comes to lake real estate, it's not always about 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. It's which way the wind's coming, right. how deep is it off the dock?
Was it an obvious move for you to work with your uncle at 13 as a fishing guide, or what brought you there?
For the most part with my uncle, there was another fellow who was a state senator named Bob Lassard, who had a boat called the Viking, and it was, I don't know, a 40-foot long boat or something, and he'd tow fishing boats behind it. And then when you'd get to where you're going, then you'd break off with these little boats. He'd have 10 boats hooked up. Anyway, one day they were short somebody, and they needed a fishing guide. And so I ended up going with Bob Lassard and his crew, and we went fishing, and everything went well. And then after that, I just started going more with my uncle and following, him in his boat, and just, I don't know, it just kind of worked out. And I sure hit a lot of rocks.
You caught a lot of fish.
Oh yeah, I've caught a lot of fish, but I'm not the best fisherman. I got good insurance, fairly reliable.
Yeah.
So no, I never claimed to be the best fisherman. So there's not really I don't get a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
A little bit, but not too much.
How did you come up with fairly reliable as the name of the fishing?
Well, because when I guided with my Uncle Butch, who was just a fabulous fishing guide that people just loved to be around. He just a storyteller, and I just saw him having a good time, and it seemed like the other guys were coming in with a few more fish, but his customers were coming in very happy. So, I don't know, just kind of popped, If I'm going to have my own guide service, what am I going to call it? Well, Bible, a little less pressure. And because fishermen are known to be such fabulous liars, there was an element of trust when people would call me. That maybe they didn't see that in others. Well, that's the way that worked.
I think it's a genius name for
with AQ. So, used to sell a lot of T-shirts with that. A lot of T-shirts and hats and underwear and I don't know, everything. We sold a lot of clothing.
So what drew you then into real estate?
Okay.
What made you want to get into that business?
Well, my wife and I were operating our resort, and a friend of mine who'd been in corporate trucking sales, his name was Brent Bachnick, moved back to Rainier, and he was looking for an office because he was gonna get into the real estate. He was just tired of the Twin City area, and he just wanted to get away, less people. And so we happened to have a space on our boardwalk that was empty, and I said, hey, try it here. And so he opened his real estate office there as an agent. And then he asked me to, later on, a year or two later, asked me to get my license to help him out because, sometimes he'd be behind. And so I did a little bit. And when he retired, it was either keep it going or don't keep it going. So I kept it going, and I found out that it was time well spent. It worked for me. And I already enjoyed meeting with people, and now you get to meet them and help them buy their dream place.
Yeah, you really are. It seems like you've always been in the business of people more than anything else. Were you always a people person?
I guess so. I never was a plumber or an electrician, just a bullshitter, I don't know how it is. So it just goes good. Bartending and guiding and that sort of thing, I don't know, you got to be kind of a amateur psychologist, I guess. A lot of introspection.
Well, I'm curious, what kind of stories did you hear on when you were working, with folks, taking them out fishing? You have to have some good stories.
A variety of stories. It must have been about 30 years ago, 25, 30 years ago, I had a woman whose husband had passed away, and she wanted his ashes spread on an island, and they were from Wisconsin somewhere, and she wanted her husband's ashes spread on an island where they had met and had vacation. It was her favorite spot on the lake, so I took her out, and now just last winter, now I got a call, or this past fall, I should say, I got a call from a relative of hers, and she wants her to spread her ashes in the same spot. So there's 30 years apart. It's just you never know, so but a lot of fun stories. I used to have my cousin fly in and pretend he was a game warden, and that was always fun at short lunch, People running around because they thought they didn't have their license, hiding in the woods. He'd get off there with his DNR cap on. It's too late now for him to get, in trouble, I think. But let me see your license. Somebody's got a fish that's too big. Oh, boy, they were hightailing. Then what would happen is he'd always find something wrong. And then he would say, somebody's got to own up to this. And eventually somebody would say, it was my fish. Then you win a plane ride. give him a plane ride for throwing himself on the grenade. You get a tour while we're cooking short lunch. We just had a lot of fun. Whatever, make it happen.
Did you find the best fishing spots just from all of those years of going out, or what was your? Everyone will want to know this, by the way, and most anglers will not tell you where they fish, right? It's top secret. But you had the luxury of, it was your job to tell people that.
Yeah, it's I got no secrets, and there aren't any secrets anymore nowadays anyway. But back then it was, basically Rainy Lake's a huge lake. It's, I don't know, it's got about 1,500 miles of shoreline or something like that. We got like 2,500 islands, and in any condition, the difference between Rainy Lake, for instance, and Lake of the Woods. Lake of the Woods is a big lake too, beautiful lake, but it's big, wide open on the Minnesota side. And of course, Rainy Lake flows from here to Lake of the Woods. We let the smaller fish go through. But on Rainy Lake, you can always get out of the wind, or find protection. There's never many days where you can't get out, and so you're forced to fish wherever you have to fish. And really, if you follow the current and the weed lines, and I mean, eventually you're always going to catch fish of some sort on Rainy Lake. And we just got tremendous fishing. And the nice thing about guiding on Rainy Lake, which was easy, is that it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful that they made it Voyageurs National Park. So there's always scenery and wildlife and things to see.
It's more than just the fishing.
It is, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you said you did that for how many years?
Well, probably about 50.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So it had to have been, I mean, to do something for 50 years, you have to be really passionate about it.
I always I just loved being on the water. I mean,
it wasn't a job to you?
I felt like a con man. I mean, getting paid to go fishing. It just didn't seem right. Of course, then you realize a little later on in life that you don't have a pension and no dental insurance or anything like
just
that.
Just a lot of fishing stories.
Yeah, but it was worth it. It was fun,
What's the biggest fish you ever caught?
Oh, it wouldn't fit on one photo.
Is that a fisherman's
There
tale?
it is, yes.
Oh, that's great. So as far as the real estate goes, you mentioned your former real estate partner and your friend.
Yep.
He moved here.
Yes.
The Twin Cities.
Yes.
Do you hear that from a lot of people now that they are looking to sort of move somewhere a little more rural, remote?
There's more people that want to move here now. COVID brought that on, I think. Well, COVID was very debilitating for the country. In many ways, it kind of revived rural America, I think, because people were looking for a little more isolation. And now with the technology and the fiber optics, and people can work remotely, and there are more people working remotely. And geez, if you like being outside and you like this climate, you got a beautiful lake and snowmobiling and boating and like that kind of lifestyle. If you can move back here, there's a lot of. I'm sure there's a lot of my friends that would trade places in a second. They might be living in New York City and going to plays and whatever, but we'll play around here.
Right. Our own kind of play. Yeah. What do you, when you meet someone and you're showing them a property on the lake, for example, I would imagine if they haven't lived here before or haven't lived on a lake before, seeing that and knowing that you could wake up to that every single day, I think that's something that those of us who live in areas like this, sometimes we take that for granted. What do you think, what are some of the responses you get from people who are experiencing the lake life for the first time?
Well, they're just excited, out of this world, unbelievable, and they're living the dream, And I would say there's certainly people that take things for granted, but I think most people that have hung around here really are passionate about the water and the lake, and they care about the environment. And but it is fun to see people's reaction for that first time being out on the lake. And looking at, the scenery and the just all the beauty and the catching some fish and the excitement and imagining themselves being here full time.
It's the dream. I guess that's from my perspective. That's not everybody's dream, but I think a lot of my friends who live in more metro areas, they can't believe that we have a skating rink right outside of the house this time of year, or that we can go sauna and swim whenever.
Absolutely,
we want. It's a lifestyle.
Absolutely, and tell them to get a hold of me.
I'm curious you've interacted with so many people throughout your long career, multiple different careers. How do you think people would describe you? People who know you.
Tall, handsome.
Continue.
The guy. great fisherman. I think they would just kind of qualify me as somebody I wouldn't mind sitting down having a beer with, and we'll tell lies to each other about the fish we didn't catch.
Oh, that's great. Well, I mean, clearly people do have a lot of respect for you and really enjoy you, because my understanding is you have a line of spirits named after you, and you have a theme song. Is that right?
Yes,
okay,
yes.
You need to talk to us about the line of spirits first, how that all came to be.
Some local people that really wanted to help out the community. I would say it was the Wagner Group, led by the Wagners, and they've done well in construction and so on and so forth. And they wanted to got some people together, and they wanted to build a hotel in Rainier. And they did. They built a beautiful hotel in Rainier, and it's got the only elevator in Rainier. It goes to the third floor. But they also added a distillery. And so then they had a marketing company come to town, and they talked about what they wanted to call their products and so on and so forth. And so they approached me and asked me if they could use nothing from nothing is nothing. Go for it. So we'll take the free advertising.
That must have felt pretty good, though.
Oh,
that
yeah,
they
it
thought
did.
of you
Yep.
for that one thing.
Yeah, well, it does, and I like to promote the area, so no, it's going all right there. Let's see, what else was
The theme song.
Oh, the theme song, that was
You have to sing it.
oh,
I'm just kidding.
that was Acoustic Smoke. Is that it? Yeah, Acoustic Smoke they're out of Bemidji. Really nice guys. They played a concert at my pub one time, and we were actually a couple years later. We were actually shooting a reality show for Discovery Channel. I don't know. They found their way up here, and they wanted to do something with the winter and outside and fishing and that sort of thing, and things were going pretty good, and Acoustic Smoke was the name of the band. They came up with a theme song. And then, of course, then we ended up on the cutting room floor, so sorry, Acoustic Smoke.
I think it's really incredible, and I hope you do too. You seem like a very humble guy, but to have a line of spirits named after you, to have a theme song, you're clearly very known in the community. What drives that? You know, you mentioned your passion for this area and really telling people about it, sharing the story of your home. What drives that for you?
Well, probably a lot of it was out of, first of all, you got to like people. But other than that, necessity, you're trying to promote your business. And it seemed like when I was younger, there was a seniority system in the guiding, pecking order. And the resorts would call you. We need this many guides, 4 guides for this group or whatever. And it was a pecking order. And so when I started my own guide service, I had to, kind of figure out a way to get my own customers without going through the pecking order, so I could be more consistent. And so I had to go out and, meet people in bars and restaurants and so on and so forth. And I mean, you got to hustle a little bit, and especially when, eating beans out of the can.
It sounds like you've always been an entrepreneur. Can you talk about, because so far you've also mentioned a resort and a pub.
Yes.
So talk about, make sure we cover all of the businesses that you've been part of.
Well, it'll take a while. I bought an old, in Rainier, which is at the time, population 199, 98 acres, 6 blocks long, 3 blocks wide. Now it's expanded. I bought the old grocery store that everybody used to go to, and it was at a point where the bigger supermarkets in International Falls, they're just people, you just couldn't compete. Small mom and pop grocery stores. So it was closed down, and I bought it, and it was right down on the lake, and we turned the loading dock into a pub, but over time, I lived in there and rented out some apartments and that sort of thing, and we, became started a pub there. From there, we built a dock and a deck and started advertising as a resort. We had 4 lodging units in that building, and then we bought a building across the street and added 4 more lodging units, and we just kind of grew it from there. And so we had the guiding and the bartending and making beds and whatever we have to do to, renting out boats and, just whatever, typical story of resort, mom and pop resort, northern Minnesota, and probably all of Minnesota. Although there's not as many mom and pop resorts nowadays, unfortunately. But it was, so that's that. And then, I don't know, with the guiding and stuff, I used to do, I don't know how I got into it, but I started doing radio interviews in the Twin Cities, like KFAN and KSTP, and I had an old bag, back when the old bag phones were, well, actually before the bag phones, I was doing some radio interviews, but once I got a cell phone, they'd have me call, like KFAN would have me call every Friday at 1:30. They had a program called Fishing Fridays, because people in the cities, they like to take off on the afternoon on Friday and head up north. Yeah. And so they would, so we would do and they would ask you questions, about, and I had fun with them and give them a real fishing. I'd like to interview my customers out on the lake. When I'd find a signal, I'd interview my customers wherever they're from, and they'd talk to them and find out if I'm telling the truth or not. And a lot of times I wasn't.
The fish weren't as big.
Well, usually it was just right after shore lunch.
Oh, sure.
Because you go to shore lunch about noon, and most of the time we weren't cooking Spam. We actually had some fish, and then we would call in right after shore lunch.
So what? For someone who has never been to this area, how would you describe it to them? If someone's saying, "Hey, I'm looking to plan a vacation, winter, summer, fall,
whatever,"
how would you pitch this area?
Well, we have the most beautiful lake in the state, and I know I'm partial, but we've got thousands of islands and beaches and bays and coves. The scenery is second to none. They made it a national park. We have an airport that you can fly on a large plane in that comes twice a day to International Falls, so it's easy to get to, but the roads are super now. They never were before, but right now the roads from the Twin Cities to International Falls are spectacular. So not a hard place to get to, a little longer. Takes you a little longer to get here, but that gives you an advantage of less people. And but you can fly in and be at the lake in 15 minutes, and there's plenty of fishing guides and resorts to take care of you. And you can call the Chamber of Commerce. I used to give out the 1-800-FALLS-MID number all the time. Call them; they'll take care of you. But we are geographically isolated. If you look at a map and you see Kootsing County, which is the second largest county in Minnesota land size, but there's only about 12,000 people in the county, which mostly are around International Falls. So we're really geographically isolated. The people here tend to really welcome tourists because there's not as many. So they're not, they really enjoy chatting with somebody from somewhere else. Yeah. So it's really an inviting place for tourists to come. Now, I don't know if that's come back in 100 years from now. I don't know if that'll be the story. But it is right now, so you better get up here while the getting's good.
And what about the people who live here? You mentioned it is kind of an isolated area. Talk a little bit about your neighbors.
Okay, well, pretty much of a blue-collar town. Our economy was primarily driven by the paper mill, which was started back in the early 1900s, and by a fellow by the name of Edward Wellington Backus. He was an industrialist. And so really it was a blue-collar area, and lumberjacks and making paper and so on and so forth, anything that support those industries. And I would say tourism is way down the line, you know. So my neighbors are people that like to be outside and enjoy whatever the outdoor sports they like, whether it's cross-country skiing or snowshoeing or swimming, whatever it gets to be. But they're hard workers. You know, they go to work, and when they have some free time, they don't have to go far to enjoy themselves. You know, it's right out their back door. So, yeah, it's not a lot of, I wouldn't say there's an abundance of wealthy people here. It's just blue collar.
And, you know, when you think about your life here, your whole life here, from your perspective and your life so far here, what does a good life, a happy life look like or mean to you?
Well, I would say, you know, waking up and being able to move around. You know, every day's different. I don't know. I guess if you were happy all the time, you'd be manic. You know, so that's probably not a good life. I don't know. You know, happy, being content. I guess if you have content, are you content? If, you know, everybody's doing all right in your family, nobody's hurt. You know, things just kind of moving along. I would say that's who can ask for more than that? I mean, once in a while I'll buy the ticket, you know, for the lottery, but I really don't want to win. It'll screw things up.
You like it the way that it is.
It's pretty good the way it is, yeah.
And, you know, looking back or ahead, what's one of your proudest moments of your life?
Oh, I think, you know, having being married to a wonderful woman, Leanne, and having 2 great sons, you know, and everybody's doing good. So we're very, very fortunate, extremely fortunate. Other than that, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's a perfect answer.
Yeah.
I can't imagine something to be more proud of.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you
Okay.
so much. This was great. It was so nice meeting you.
Well, nice meeting you.
Yes, and thanks for sharing
You bet.
your story.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
And enjoy the rest of your time here in International Falls area.
Thank you. Yes, we will.